Hello and welcome to EduCurious. I'm so excited to have our guest. Her name is Caroline Acevedo, and she is the Gifted and Talented Coordinator for our charter school system. Hello, Caroline. Thank you so much for joining us. We've got lots of questions about your program.
Hey, thank you for having me. I appreciate that.
Tell me a little bit about you. Give me some of your background and how you got to be in education.
I am from Puerto Rico. So I graduated from the University of Puerto Rico a lot of years ago. My main major is drama teaching. And then I moved over here and I did my certificate in primary and then I started working for our system. The reason why I wanted to become a teacher is that I always had a very profound love to kids and helping them. And of course, this is a great way to be able to do that.
And with your role right now, tell me a little bit about what you do. This title, Gifted and Talented Coordinator, encompasses a lot. So give us the spiel.
So as the Gifted and Talented Coordinator, what I do is that I give services to the students in our system. And there are two different ways that I provide these services because I work with the elementary students and I also work with the high school students. With our elementary is something called Gifted Enrichment, which means that I pull them out of the classroom once a week and I work with them for an hour. And we do activities in which they can enhance their problem solving skills, their critical thinking, and most especially their creative skills. I think our future is about everything that is creative. So I really try to channel that a lot with them. For the high school, I do something called gifted consultation, which means that I just monitor the students and how they're doing because most of them are already being challenged with any advanced classes that they take, or if they do any of the advanced programs at our high school, they're already being challenged like that. So what I do is that I keep in contact with at least one of their teachers monthly to see how they are doing academically and with their gifted goals. And I also check on their grades. And if I ever see hey, these grades are not where they need to be, or their teachers have any concerns, then I go ahead and I meet with the students and we come up with an academic plan and try to help them and see, what the root of the struggle is for them at the moment and see how we can fix that.
So, how does a student get on the pathway to become part of the Gifted and Talented program?
So the first step is a referral. So it can be the parent, it can be the teacher, it can be another person at the school that feels or has seen different gifted characteristics in the student. They can refer that student to me. I'll set up permission home, asking the parent if it is okay for me to screen the student. If the student does not get the score that the student needs to be able to move on, then the process is going to stop there. But if the student does get the score needed, then a student will move on to the next step in the evaluation, which will be a psychoeducational test with the school psychologist. And then we're also going to be gathering some different types of information. Once we have all that, we'll have a meeting. And in that meeting, we're going to look at all the data. We're going to look at the scores, and we will determine with the parent, the general educator, teacher, the school psychologist, and myself, determine if the student is eligible to be part of the gifted program.
And about what age is sort of the threshold for having a good read on a student?
We can start since kindergarten. We can start testing students. I see with the students that I have tested, I think once they're like in third, fourth, fifth grade, I have seen more students moving to the next step in the evaluation process on those grades. It doesn't mean that I have not had kindergartens, because I have had kindergartens that have scored what they needed, and first graders as well. So I would say it's absolutely fine to go ahead and test the students, because if you see that the student have a very strong characteristics and you think the student is gifted, it's better to go ahead and test them right away.
What are some of the characteristics that stand out that are identifiers of a potential gifted student?
When we think about gifted students, we always think about students that have good grades and that is always scoring very high on any standardized test. And you know what? For 90% of the students, that is the case. But there's also other characteristics that we need to pay attention to. If the student is inquisitive, the student likes to read a lot about facts and has a large vocabulary. If the student you see there's a creative side of that student, when you have blocks in the classroom, or when you give an assignment with different types of materials and this student always tries to think outside the box, that is another great characteristic. They have great sense of justice. Sometimes they can daydream a lot, and that characteristic can be a little confusing for teachers, because sometimes when we see a student that is daydreaming a lot, we think the student's not paying attention, it's just thinking about something else, but a lot of them are daydreaming, and they daydreaming about a lot of different questions or a lot of different outcomes that they can provide to the teacher. And that's something that I have seen with my gifted students, is that sometimes a project that I think is gonna be done in 2 or 3 gifted sessions, it lasts way longer, because they think about a solution, but then they think about another solution, and then they think about another solution. So it's hard for them to just choose one thing. And that is another characteristic of gifted students. Now, when I talk about that 90%, that is always like getting the good grades and doing, what we always think a gifted student should do. We also have that 10% that is not scoring well, that 10% that is not paying attention in the classroom, that 10% that is not getting good grades. So that's when we need to think about these other characteristics and see if that is the reason, because sometimes they just get bored or they're not challenged enough, and that's why they don't pay attention. And that can develop a behavior problem. So we always have to look at those students. Hey, okay, the student is misbehaving, they're not getting good grades. Is there a chance, like, let me look at this list? And there's a list that I provide to the teachers at the beginning of the school year with all the different characteristics of a gifted students. So I always tell them, if you have any kid like this, check the list just in case you see any of these characteristics. It's not going to mean that every student that doesn't have good grades or misbehave is gifted, but we can always look at that list and see if there's a chance.
So is this test, the results of it, a direct correlation to a student's IQ, or is it a lot different than just those metrics?
The screening that I do gives you an idea of what their IQ composite may be. And then when we do the psychoeducational, that gives you a really, the closest thing to what their IQ actually is. But there's always like a 5-point variation from that score that they get.
And about how long is the test that you administer, and what are the different phases that they pass through?
Well, the screening that I give them is going to depend on the student, and it's going to depend on the amount of time that they take. I have some students that are done in 20 minutes. I have other students that take a little bit longer than that. The test that I give them has 3 different sections to it, and we are looking to see how their verbal and nonverbal skills are. Now, for the other student, that is, I'm going to be honest, going to be more of a question for the school psychologist, because she's the one that does the other test, and they are different tests that she can administer. But I know she will also be looking at that nonverbal and verbal skills.
Is it one-on-one, you and that student? Is it a group setting?
No, for myself, it's one-on-one.
So in a given week, would you have a list of potential students? You'd go meet with them, or how does that work on the other side of things?
Once I have the letter from the parent saying, yes, my student can go ahead and be tested for gifted, I do have a list for each school, and I just, I email the teacher and I ask them, can I go ahead and test this student on a certain day? And the teacher will tell me if that is okay. So I try my best to do as many as I can, but because I also provide services, so it depends on my schedule and how many groups I'm serving at that school on that day, because I go to the different schools. So I have a day for each one of the schools. So I think I try to do at least 3 a day when I am at the school, but it's a lot of factors that go into it, and see how many I can do in a day.
So say my child gets screened, they pass through your portion and the school psychologist portion. What would their academic enrichments look like if they're in the elementary school? Is it going to be some time out just with you or with a special teacher? Tell me a little bit about that.
So in the elementary school, if they are admitted into the gifted program, what I do is that I pull them out of their classroom for an hour, and there is a chance that they are going to be with students that are older than them, because it depends on the population that I have at that specific school, which has worked. I had a first grader with a bunch of fourth graders, and they work very well together. And I think because a lot of them think the same way, that's what, allows them to be able to work together well. So we do a lot of problem solving projects and a lot of hands-on. Like some of the examples right now, we are talking about bridges because we're talking about being engineers, so they have built a couple of different bridges. We went over all 7 types of them, and they have built, and we had tried them doing different, like putting different weights to them and all that. They work on all those different skills when they're with me. But also, once we know that student is gifted, like for sure, yes, is into the gifted program, I also talk to the teachers and I say, yes, the student is gifted, but that student is going to be with me just once a week, and that's not going to be enough. So in the classroom, the teacher also needs to give that student material that is going to challenge that student, and not just busy work. And because sometimes those gifted students are going to finish early because they're going to be like super quick. They're going to be able to finish with the material and even master the material already for their grade that they're in. So I always tell them we need to challenge them. Here are some things that you can do with that student. Another possibility also, if that student is very advanced and has already mastered the grade level that they are in, we can also try to see if on a specific subject that student can go to another grade. Like for reading, you may have a second grade student that already mastered the second grade reading curriculum and all the standards. Maybe that student during that time can go to third grade and have reading there, or can go for math to third grade, and so on. So that is also something else that can help the student to be able, to keep on moving on.
And in high school, you said that you do a lot of check-ins and a lot of almost like mentoring, but tell me a little bit more about what it looks like when you're working with the high school students.
When I'm working with them, when they see me, because mostly when I communicate with them through our email, if the students are doing like absolutely fine, their grades they're good, their teachers have no concerns, I'm gonna be emailing them with important information, just checking in with them, sending them emails that had to do with scholarship opportunities, emails about volunteer hours, especially for those kids that are doing the IB program. They need a lot of volunteer hours. So every time I see any opportunity like that, I'm gonna go ahead and email them. With the students that are struggling or there are any concerns, I email them first. Hey, this is going on. Let's talk about it. If I see that after that email things are not going well, then I'm gonna go ahead and meet with them at the high school. And sometimes they say, yes, I'm sorry, I haven't been able to turn in my work, but I will do it. And I had some students that have been able, to bring up those grades. So they have emailed me and they say, hey, Miss Acevedo, I want to get my grades up. What can we do? So then we will email each other back and forth of if the student wants to meet with me, we can do that. We come up with a plan, and it has helped some of them, which is great. There's some others that still need a little push, and I understand high school can be overwhelming, especially at that age that, they go to high school, which I completely understand. But yes, some of them need an extra push. And then when that happens, I talk to their guidance counselor and to see if that guidance counselor can meet with them as well and maybe come up with an even deeper academic plans, since the guidance counselor works right there at the high school, they're going to even be able to to monitor even more than I can from where I am.
So I've had a couple questions that I've heard, and it's usually from a kid like, "Ooh, I don't know if I want to be gifted. That sounds like a lot more work." Or from a parent that says, "Ooh, I don't want my kid to be labeled, even though it's a great label."
Mm-hmm.
What do you say to those two schools of thought?
Well, to the children so far, they have enjoyed it a lot. And I understand that some kids may think it's a lot of work. I don't want to do that. But I try to make it as fun as possible. And when they're with me, they create their own learning. Like with me, I teach a lesson. We go over it, I ask questions, and then I always try for them to do something hands-on. And once that stage happens, they're on their own in the sense of Now you're going to create. I'm just going to be walking around. I'm going to be just a resource. If you have a question, if you need help with anything, I am here. But now it's your turn. And it's really nice to see how they talk to each other and how they're able to solve problems. Like come up with a product, and if they come to a crossroads and they say, oh my gosh, how can I make this work? Seeing how they talk and have that conversation and actually being able, even without my help, to come up with a solution, that is very interesting. So I really try to make my lessons very engaging to them, and I don't feel like they feel that is extra work. I from what I have seen, they really enjoy it and they really look forward to what is next. Every time we're done with a project, they're like, okay, what are we gonna do next? And I always try to keep them like on the edge. I'm like, nope, you need to wait until you come back for our next class to see what's gonna happen. So everything I have seen so far is very positive feedback from the students and from the parents as well of the students that I serve this. When it comes to the label question, I understand because I had a parent that didn't want her child to be tested for gifted because the paper said ESE, because giftedness falls under the umbrella of ESE because it is an exceptionality. It is something that is out of the ordinary when you compare it to the mainstream classes. And I talked to the parent and I explained exactly that this is the reason why gifted falls under the umbrella of ESE. It's just because it's an exceptionality. In this case, it's different from other exceptionalities that you have heard before when you think about ESE. And usually, with that explanation, everything is fine and we're able to move on with the students. But yeah, just to the parents that think they don't want the student to be labeled, just remember it's a different type of exceptionality, and it's something that is for the benefit of the child.
Now, you mentioned elementary and high school. I noticed that sometimes a middle school campus might actually have a class dedicated to gifted. Do you also work with those teachers in those classes?
Yeah.
And how so?
Well, with them, and I'm glad you brought that up, for our elementary senior system, we have a teacher that is doing the gifted program on each of those middle schools. And they do it through reading, through advanced reading classes. And I have been able to collaborate with the teachers on those different middle schools. We had met quarterly just to see how they are, how they're doing, and especially on how to incorporate giftedness in a regular subject, which can be a little hard because when you have a regular subject that you need to teach, you also have a curriculum that you need to follow and you have standards that you need to hit. So that can be hard for a teacher as well. So it's just trying to see how can I be able to hit the standard, but incorporate activities that are gonna have our students think outside the box. So for example, I saw that at a school, a teacher was doing a specific type of book. And one of the things that the students did was a tree house that had to do with the book that they were doing. So I thought that was cool. So this teacher, she was talking about figurative language, and what she decided her students to do was to pick a song, and then from that song, they needed to do a PowerPoint representing the different types of figurative language that song had. So those are ways that giftedness can be incorporated in regular subjects at the schools.
In high school, tell me about the opportunities that being classified and being enriched with the gifted program opens for high school students.
I think it helps a lot with being able to get certain scholarships that are directly with gifted students, because once at the high school, their advanced classes are also gonna be tied to their scores. Most of our gifted students score high on those standardized tests, so that's going to help them, especially when they're going from middle school to high school. It's going to help them with doing those advanced classes that are going to count as high school credits. Once they go to the high school, they already have some high school credits in their pocket, so that is going to help them advance a little bit more and being able to fulfill some of the credits that they need. And maybe they want to do dual enrollment after that. that because they have enough credits to be able to start with adult enrollment. So that is something also that being able to be part of the gifted program and keep on working with those higher critical thinking skills is going to help them not only when they're with me in gifted, but they can bring those into their regular classroom, and that can help them with any task that they have in there.
So the classification of gifted goes in their red folder under the student information and then stays with the student from when they get tested if they pass and meet the criteria throughout their scholastic tenure, is what I'm
Yeah.
hearing. Okay.
Once gifted, always gifted. The student does not need to be retested again. The only thing that changes every 3 years when they are in elementary and middle school would be their educational plan. Every time a student goes into the program, we do an educational plan in which we're going to establish the services that the students are going to have, but we also going to establish some gifted goals. And those are the goals that I constantly monitor. So when they're in elementary, that educational plan lasts 3 years. At those 3 years, we meet with the parents and we set new goals. And then those in middle school last 3 years as well. And once they move to the high school, those goals last 4 years.
Tell me about some of the challenges that you've experienced being in this role, facilitating the gifted and talented program.
The first challenge was that I didn't know a task could take so long. With gifted students, I had to actually stop and realize the way they think is different, and it may take longer than I thought it was going to take. They can get frustrated quickly if something doesn't happen quick because they are so used to knowing everything, like I can quickly resolve this. And then for some of them, and it's a small percentage, for some of them, when that doesn't happen, they can get very frustrated. So that's something that I had to work with and teach myself that. Because again, before I started giftedness, I thought I had the misconception that I think a lot of people have of what giftedness is, right? We always think of a gifted student as the one that behaves, there's no problems, does everything the way that is supposed to be done. But I also learned that 10% get frustrated quickly. So that is something that I had to have the student channel and say, hey, no, you're going to do it. It's okay. I talked them through it. And little by little, they have realized that they are, able to do it. It's just sometimes some tasks are going to take a little bit longer than others. Something else is that some of them think they know everything. And even before I'm done with instructions, they're like, I know what I need to do. I'm like, no, wait, let me finish. Let me finish and let's see. And then they're like, oh, okay, I thought I needed to do this. And I said, yes, that's what you need to wait. And that happens too when I'm testing. If I'm asking a question, some of them answer without me finishing the question. I'm like, no, wait, I need to finish the question. And so I think for the most part, that's have been my challenges.
So some of the learning with you is the emotional regulation side, which they need to learn. Yes, we all do.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's another characteristic, and I remember organizational skills are another forte for a lot of gifted students, which I knew because I have a son that is gifted, which is one of the reasons that I also, when this opportunity of the gifted position came up, I wanted to try it because, I saw what he did with his gifted teacher and I thought it was super cool. And he is very unorganized. He always has a mess. And I thought it was only him. But no, I realized that a lot of them are the same way because even when they're doing projects, there's a mess bigger than I thought it was going to be. So that's something else there.
So when you got into this gifted sector of education, what were some of the things that you had to do to become certified to teach these courses? Like there's a threshold that teachers have to meet to facilitate this, correct?
Yeah, you need to have your gifted certification, which consists of 5 different classes and is throughout a whole year. It is a lot of reading, it is a lot of work, but it was also eye-opening because going back to that misconception, that's where I learned, no, wait a minute, not all gifted students are the same. So definitely was an eye-opener for me in a lot of different ways.
What are some of your greatest accomplishments within education, but particularly within teaching gifted?
This student that was referred to me by a teacher, and she said, Caroline, his grades are not good, his scores are not good, but I really, really feel that it's because he's bored. And I said, okay. So I tested him. When I did the screening, he scored very high. He entered the gifted program. His grades started to move up. Scores on standardized tests from a 1 and a 2 move up from 4 and 5. And he told me one time, he said, Miss Acevedo, I'm going to get a 5 on this test. I said, of course you can. And he did. He scored a 5 from a 2 or a 3 that he previously had. I don't want to take full credit, but maybe he realized that he was enough, that I am capable. I am capable of doing this. I think maybe being part of the gifted program has something to do with it, because maybe he said, wait, if I am the gifted program, it's because I'm high or I'm smart and I'm able to do all these things. And that, to me, I always hold him dear to my heart, because I saw that progress from the beginning to where he is now. So that is great to see.
What do you feel like is your teaching philosophy, or what makes you excited to go in every day and work with these kids and bring out their best?
I love to see what they create. I think looking at them and seeing their train of thought, because with some of them, and that excites me. That's something that I'm going to teach this lesson, and I cannot wait to see what their product is going to be or what their thought process is going to be, because with some of them, you can see it on their faces. Like, you can see when those wheels, are turning, and how they're thinking. And even some of them start doing some mannerisms, like they're, and they go all like this, so you can tell they're thinking, and those things make me excited. Like, I want to go in there and I want to see that. The moments when they are talking to their partner and they're able to work together, that is very exciting. Like, every time I have a lesson, I'm starting a new lesson, I just look so much forward to what the ending product is going to be. One of the things that I did with them was they needed to create a presentation of a person, an animal, or an invention. It could be real, or they could have made it up, but they couldn't tell which one was which. Like, they couldn't tell me. So they either did a PowerPoint presentation or they did a poster board, and they dressed up and everything. If it was like somebody in history, or if they were going to talk about an animal, some of the parents bought costumes for them to wear for the presentation, which was super cool. One of them was doing a presentation of William Shakespeare, and he had like the clothing from the era, and even a little, I don't know, it was so cute. So I brought some people to come and observe the presentations. Of course, with William Shakespeare, he was a real person, in history, but especially for the people that were doing animals, these kids came up with facts about these animals, and they were able to answer the questions of the visitors so quickly and on the spot that it was hard for the visitors to know if it was a real animal or if it was a made up animal, because it needed to be an animal that was extinct. So it wouldn't be like a modern day animal that was easy for the visitors to know if it was a real animal or not. And every time, like, the visitors most of the time thought, oh, it's real, and the kids just giggle and they're like, no, I made it up. I made it all up. And even with people in history, like, some of them made up people in history, and the visitors thought they were real people from history, and they're like, no, I made this person up. So that was kind of cute.
What are some of the resources that you love to stay connected to just be up to date on all of maybe like new projects that you want to implement? What do you tap into?
I like to look through Odyssey of the Mind. That is a good website. Genius Hour is another good website that has a lot of different ideas. Sea Palms also has great resources that I like to look into. Even sometimes going to Teacher Pay Teachers, they also have some good resources in there. There's a National Gifted page that also has some ideas. So those are some of the things that I look at, and sometimes I can follow like a particular lesson from them, or I just grab things from here and there, and I just incorporate other things that I think of, and I create a lesson out of that.
Looking ahead, what do you want to accomplish project wise in some of your classes in the next couple years?
One of the things that I would like to do is take them on a field trip. Like being able to teach a lesson, having a specific theme through the year, and being able to finish with a field trip. The only thing that is a little hard for me, since I have different schools, is like how am I gonna be able to do that with all different schools? So that's something that I still thinking about. Another thing that I would like to do one day is taking them to an Odyssey of the Mind competition. And Odyssey of the Mind has great resources, but they also have like a specific project. And the students of each school, they do that project and they compete with other students. So that is something that I would like to do with them one day, but I still feel like I'm not prepared for that yet. Like I've been listening to their presentations from the people of Odyssey on the Mind and all and everything that they have to offer. But I want to be more prepared myself to be able to bring this group of kids to actually compete with other students.
With all of the technology advancements and AI and just the fast change of pace lately, do you have any concerns or maybe like opposite excitement about where this creative mindset can take us with gifted and with the jobs that are going to be coming up in the future?
I think that's why I push the creative aspect of giftedness, because I know with AI and all these different things that are happening, you need to be creative to be able to work with all these things or to come up with things, yourself. So that's why I push the creativeness so much, because I really want them to be able to be out there in the world when the time comes from in the future for them to do that. And I think all of those things are very good allies when it comes to giftedness. Coding is another thing that I want to do with them. And I think coding will help a lot of them in the future. Technology has helped them, with their PowerPoints as a tool for them to be able to research when they have done research projects, being able to go online and, just working with the computer. Some of them know more than I do because, hey, I'm way older than them. And a lot of these kids are very, so technological savvy compared to what I know. Sometimes they teach me. So, but I think, yes, definitely technology is an ally and something that is going to help not only the gifted students, but I think a lot of people.
Do you have any closing thoughts or things that you would like to make sure parents or teachers were more aware of to make your life a little more streamlined?
Well, I just want the parents to know that giftedness is not, a lot of people think it's just genetics. And yes, that has a lot to do with the giftedness, but it's also the exposure and the opportunities that these students have to discover different things. So I would say from a very young age, read to your kids, take them to the museum. Kids are sponges, and that is going to grow their intellectual. So it is very important that whenever we have that opportunity as parents to expose our children to more facts and to more knowledge, the more probability of that student to be able to develop that intellect and to be able maybe to even be part of the gifted program.
So thank you so much. That's been so helpful to have you. Appreciate it, Caroline.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
So thank you everyone for joining us today on EduCurious. And whether you're a teacher, a parent, or just EduCurious, join the community as we explore various educational topics and learn from each other. We'll see you next time.